Welcome back to Euro Football Daily, where today we're going to be looking at 5 players whose form has collapsed. 5. Toni Kroos. Famed for his distribution, Real Madrid's Toni Kroos has been a phenomenal passer throughout his career, and he remains so now. In the opening weeks of the 2019-20 season, the midfielder remains among the top volume passers in Spain, finding his man around 75 times a game and averaging nearly 6 successful long balls too. And though his chief task is to keep possession ticking over, Kroos has taken on more creative responsibility than ever before, currently producing 4.1 key passes per 90 in the league, his best mark in senior football. However, around half of those come from set pieces, and the quantity only just makes up for the quality of chances created, which is slightly lower than in previous seasons, as shown by the fact that Gareth Bale and Dani Carvajal are both currently putting up more expected assists per game than the German. Meanwhile, those long ball numbers are deceptive too, as the German is succeeding with fewer long passes and failing with more than at any time in his spell in Madrid. But most important of all is Kroos' defensive contribution, which has plummeted as he approaches his 30th birthday. So far this term, his tackle and interception numbers are the lowest of his entire club career, despite the midfielder having featured number 10 in his years with Bayer Leverkusen and Bayern Munich, and worked under Pep Guardiola at the Allianz Arena, whose high possession style normally sees his players get fewer chances to make challenges. It's possible that Kroos' output is being affected by a physical decline too, with 1.4 fouls per 90, the third highest he's ever tallied. He may well be getting slower and clumsier, a problem when he's playing alongside a 34-year-old Luka Modric. Kroos is completing 1.7 dribbles per appearance this season, and while that has worked out nicely after 4 games, with all his attempted league take-ons ending in success, that's more likely to be fortune than anything sustainable. Meanwhile, the summer departures of Marcos Llorente, Dani Ceballos and Mateo Kovacic have left Madrid with few rotation options, and a move away from the 4-2-3-1 often used by Santiago Solari also robs the midfield of protection in forward areas. Isco and Ceballos both featured there in 2018-19 and both put up around 3 tackles and interceptions per 90. Without them, Casemiro is likely to have an exceptionally tiring 12 months, and a defensive decline is already apparent in the XG numbers. Currently, only 4 teams have conceded more XG than Real in the Liga, and Los Blancos are allowing 1.6 expected goals against per game, a downgrade even on last campaign's 1.28, which at the time only ranked 10th in Spain. In a summer where their most pressing need was in midfield, Real only weakened that area. And with Kroos on this sort of form, it's hard to see 2020 bringing any new silverware to the Bernabeu. Just before we move on to our next one, if you guys don't want your form to collapse just like some of these players, make sure you're subscribed to Euro Football Daily and click the notification bell so you're notified on every single video. 4. Kelechi Iheanacho. Breaking into the Man City team as an 18-year-old back in 2015, Kelechi Iheanacho instantly looked like a superstar. Across 2 campaigns with the Citizens, he scored 12 goals and assisted 4, in which time he was involved in a goal every 78 minutes, by far the best in the squad and in the league as a whole. What's more, his underlying numbers backed up that output. He took over 3 shots a game, the usual baseline for a quality striker, and having played off the wing and at attacking midfield in his youth, he was creative too, with 2 key passes per 90. All this meant that at the end of his first season, he had an incredible 0.8 expected goals and assists per match, and in his second, even those figures were swiftly blown away by an astonishing 1.3, the same as Robert Lewandowski managed in 2018-19 in the Poles' best ever expected goals performance. Of course, even an exceptional youngster was always going to struggle to get into the City lineup, and so when Leicester offered £25 million for the Nigerian in 2017, City agreed, on the condition that they inserted a buyback clause in his contract, enabling the Manchester Giants to bring the youngster back to the Etihad if, as expected, he developed into a superstar. Now, it's needless to say it hasn't entirely gone to plan. In 2 years at the King Power, Iheanacho has only played around 500 more minutes than he did in 24 months with City, and in that time, he's got 4 goals and 6 assists. Still very solid at a goal contribution every 172 minutes, but hardly earth-shattering. Meanwhile, his previously excellent shot count has dropped to under 2 a game, with key passes falling to 1.3. Perhaps that's a result of playing for a less dominant team, Well, dribbles have declined as well, with 1.6 in his breakout season to 0.9 in 18-19. It's not a pretty picture, but there are reasons to be optimistic, as the problems largely came during the Foxes' troubled 2018-19 season. In his maiden term with Leicester, Iheanacho actually underperformed his XG, which put him at 0.77 for expected goals and assists per 90, with over 3 shots a match. That lines up nicely with his early days at City, and it's not just good for a younger player, but good for anyone. In fact, better than Harry Kane or Eden Hazard managed last year. Iheanacho contributed in ball progression and the defensive phase too, completing 70% of his dribbles and adding around 1.5 tackles and interceptions and nearly 2 fouls per game, more than Roberto Firmino in Premier League play. Yet to turn 23, there is still enough promise in the forwards numbers that he could yet have a strong career at the top level, especially with a strike rate of 1 in 3 for Nigeria. All he needs is a chance to show what he's capable of, whether at Leicester or somewhere else. 3. Eric Dier. A £4 million bargain when Spurs signed him from Sporting Lisbon in 2014, Eric Dier looked immediately like a top prospect, capable of playing at right back, centre back and in holding midfield in a young side challenging for the biggest honours in the game. Versatility can sometimes hurt a player, making their stats look muddled or their positioning a little shoddy, and as a consequence, Dier has never quite achieved the outstanding ball winning of other top flight midfielders. Still, in his early days with the Lily Whites, the Englishman managed around 4.5 tackles and interceptions per game, meaning he and Moussa Dembele, then the preferred midfield partnership, regained possession for their side nearly 11 times a match. And when faced with an attacker, Dier was rarely beaten, winning over 70% of the challenges he attempted, a low number for a fullback, but excellent in the middle of the park. He also avoided the Francis Coquelin problem of being a drag in possession. Though never a line-breaking distributor, Dier played the most passes per game of anyone at Spurs in 2015-16, and his reliability meant that between 2015 and 2018, he missed just 7 league games out of 114. But in 2018-19, his form began to fall away. Dier endured 3 significant injuries across the season, directly resulting in him missing 19 games, and when he got on the field, he didn't look the same. Suddenly, he was making under 3 defensive actions per 90 minutes, the same as Henrik Mkhitaryan, and getting beaten on the dribble over half of the time, with just 47% of his challenges seeing him come away with the ball. In a league more focused on pressing than ever, Dier also became less able to evade opponents. In 2015-16, he completed roughly a dribble a game, 22 in the Premier League campaign. In 2018-19, that fell to just 2, and even his impressive physicality began to fail too, with his win rate on headers falling from 61% to 53%, hardly the output you'd expect from someone 6'2" tall. All this meant that from one of Mauricio Pochettino's most trusted lieutenants, Dier became a liability, rarely selected for the big games unless injuries forced it. 17 Spurs players got more UCL minutes than him, including Serge Aurier, and almost all of that came in the group stage, with just 50 minutes game time during the knockouts. With Harry Winks and Moussa Sissoko now preferred, and the arrivals of Tanguy Ndombele and Giovanni Lo Celso, there is little prospect of Dier re-establishing himself as a first-choice midfielder at White Hart Lane, or at Wembley. 2. Angel Correa. If you'd told an Atletico Madrid fan 3 years ago that by 2019 Antoine Griezmann would be at Barcelona, they might have consoled themselves with the thought that Angel Correa would be around to take his place. The Argentinian joined the Rojiblancos in 2014 for €7.5 million, having already won a league title and Copa Libertadores with San Lorenzo, and comparisons to Sergio Aguero and Carlos Tevez made him seem a safe bet for superstardom. Indeed, Correa was already highly regarded at international level when he teamed up with Simeone. Despite being 18 months younger than Paulo Dybala, he made his debut for the Albiceleste a month before the Juventus man, and just 4 weeks after he played his first game in La Liga. But his debut campaign would go on to make the national faith look well deserved, though opportunities were limited. In under 11 full games, Correa recorded 5 goals and 4 assists, as well as 3 shots and 1.5 chances created per 90. That meant that across the season, he scored or created a goal every 104 minutes, while Antoine Griezmann took 114 minutes to do the same. That form continued into the following season, as the tricky attacker was involved in 12 goals in the Liga and racked up an expected goal contribution of 0.66 per game, the same as Griezmann across his time in Madrid. However, the leap to first-team regular in 2017 did not come with a corresponding boost in his numbers. In 2017-18, despite playing twice as many minutes as the season before, he again got 12 goals and assists, while only managing to take and create 3 shots a game in total. A year on, matters got worse still, when, as a regular starter who missed just 2 league matches all year, he was involved in fewer league goals than defensive midfielder Thomas Partey, and just 1 more than Diego Godin. But, as with Iheanacho, there are some positives. The fact that Correa kept his place in Simeone's plans regardless of his struggles in front of goal is largely due to his work rate. An excellent presser, he wins the ball back nearly 3 times per appearance, a level of output which has remained consistent since he first pulled on the red and white shirt. He has also used his lower body strength to develop into an adept dribbler, beating his man 3 times per 90 with a success rate of 63%, which compares favourably to the 47% achieved in his first 2 years under Cholo. Soon to turn 25, Correa almost joined AC Milan in the summer of 2019 for a massive 50 million euros. And with Thomas Lemar and João Felix in the squad, Atletico may be willing to part ways with the former wonderkid. Having stagnated in Spain, a new challenge may be what the doctor ordered. 1. Julian Weigl. Once tipped as a future Man City or Barcelona midfielder, Julian Weigl now finds himself unable to get into the Borussia Dortmund XI, sitting behind Thomas Delaney, Mahmoud Dahoud and Axel Witsel in the pecking order, and deservedly so. The 24-year-old burst onto the scene in 2015 when Thomas Tuchel was in charge at BVB, joining them for just 2.5 million euros after a season and a half in the second division. A year later, he was coveted by every super club and went to Euro 2016 with Germany before his 21st birthday. Almost supernaturally calm and assured on the ball, Weigl was the conduit for all of Dortmund's possession play, as he completed a Guardiola-esque 94 passes per game, the most in the squad, and 70% of his long balls. The willowy playmaker also completed a dribble a game, which is actually pretty good for a deep midfielder, with a 69% success rate, which rose to 83% in his second season, making the youngster one of the more press-resistant registas in Europe and earning comparisons to Sergio Busquets and Xabi Alonso. However, these are all distant memories now, with Dortmund coach Lucien Favre so unimpressed by the German's output in midfield in 2018-19 that he tried him out at centre-back. Weigl only ended up playing 48% of available minutes in the Bundesliga, and on the ball, he looked shakier than ever before. His dribbles dropped to 0.4 a game and his passes to 75. Still strong, but behind Axel Witsel and Manuel Akanji. And without exceptional distribution, it became harder to justify the former 1860 Munich man's spot in the side. Under Tuchel, he made over 5 tackles and interceptions a game, while in 2018-19, despite Dortmund having 56% possession to 59% they enjoyed under the PSG's coach stewardship, he could manage only 3. This year so far, it's got even worse, dropping to 2. In many ways, Weigl was an outdated kind of player, an immobile quarterback type who looks a little lightweight in a world where deep midfielders increasingly resemble Frankie de Jong and Tanguy Ndombele, rather than Pirlo and Granit Xhaka. Without an international call-up since 2017, Weigl's renaissance needs to arrive swiftly. So those were our 5 players whose form has collapsed, but have we missed out anyone else? Or were some of them a little bit controversial? Please let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click on the one on screen right now. And as always guys, don't forget to like and subscribe.